again to another episode of Career Journeys where we tell stories that inspire. I have on this show guests from different walks of life and professions, hoping that through their stories we can get inspired in our own journeys. Today, I have a very special person with me, and I'm so looking forward to jumping right in and getting to know her a little bit more through our career journey. I have with me today Lola Erogbogbo. Welcome, Lola. All right, let me read something from our LinkedIn profile, and then she will give us a more robust introduction of herself. Lola Erogbogbo is a director of quality. Wow, I wonder what that means. Maybe she can come and help direct the quality of my life. We'll find out if that's what it means in a moment. But on our profile, we'll see Cyber Health. We'll see that she has done a lot of hardware engineering work, senior hardware quality engineer, principal engineer, engineer, systems engineer, engineering. I have a feeling that today's interview is going to be very technical and very STEM oriented. But let's see. Lola, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit more to our audience today?
All right, awesome. Thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure to be on here to talk a little bit about my career journey so far. So far it's still a journey. We're still heading somewhere, right? But I think just in terms of in the way of introduction, I'm Lola Erogbogbo. I'm director of quality at Cyber Health, and I can later on I can talk about what we do as an organization. But yeah, I'm a mother of three, married, try to enjoy life as best as possible. Like to push myself from a career perspective. I have an engineering background, electrical engineering, and over the years, I've just kind of transitioned from the electrical engineering and design space into more of a quality assurance space. I've always been in the healthcare medical device industry. And I like it a lot because of the impact it makes in our community. You see the direct impact on the really vulnerable of people in our community, right? So I can definitely see the direct impact that the devices I work with or the organizations I work with have on those people. I think one of the stories I like to tell is, and maybe this is getting a little bit over, ahead of myself,
Go
but
ahead.
I, I mean, this is always, it's kind of links to my passion in why I stay in the field I'm in, is I work for an organization that made infusion pumps. And for those that don't, know what that is, it's really the, devices that pump saline or drugs into a patient's arm. And working in that organization is, you see the good and the bad of the device itself. This is attached and to very very sick patients, right? So back in maybe 2018, when my mom was sick and in the hospital, I went and visited her, and lo and behold, I see, the device connected to my mother who's very sick, and it just brings a new reality to you,
Wow.
to your mind, and to your perspective when you see that. Wait, this is for real,
This is for real. We're not playing. It's not
we
toys.
ain't playing here,
We're
we're
not
not
playing
making
here.
toys. And this
Mm,
isn't going out to, imaginary people. It's
that
it's
is
going to be
true.
used on real people. So it just really gives you a whole new perspective to how you approach work, how you approach, the quality, of what you're putting out there. So I mean, it's really been, something that I'm like, this has significant impact in our environment or in our community. And yeah, I think that just really drives my passion to continue to, stay and make an impact and a difference in the medical device and healthcare industry overall.
Wow, thank you for sharing that story. That's so profound. It's not every day we get to see the direct impact our work is having on
Hmm.
people. Wow, that is such a profound one.
Yeah.
So you're a woman, you're an engineer, you are black. How has your journey been? Has it been lonely at times? Where you probably haven't seen a lot of people that look like you, in many spaces that you've been in. How have you handled that?
Yeah. I think it's like you said, it's been lonely at the same time fun. I think for me, it's kind of starting from college and being in an electrical engineer, right? I think I was the only, from my recollection, I was the only black lady in my graduating class. So I mean, there were black guys and men in the space, but from a woman, I think I was the only black lady in my graduating class. But I think for me, it's interesting and it's fun because they treat you like an alien, like you're soft and you can really handle much, and then you come in and you dazzle, right? And then they're like, oh wow, you just get a new sense of respect, and they just have a whole new perspective on you know on my person and black people generally. I think that's always really driven me to really hold up my head and represent well anywhere I am, so that the perspective people have, especially people that are not of our race, I can make a difference. I can maybe change that perspective a little bit, right? That we're not all we're not nuisances. We add to the building of our community. So I think it really drives me to just continue to hold up my head and represent well. So it's always interesting to be able to see how at first people are just kind of like, they're unsure about how to handle you. They're a little delicate, right? I don't want to say the wrong thing, so that but then when you come and you do your stuff and you show results, right? It really gives a different outlook, from their point of view, and how they communicate with you is different. How people just respect my person. I think it's just interesting to see. So that's kind of like in college, and then getting my first job out of college is the same thing, working with a lot of Caucasian men in the space, and just similar situation where they're just not sure how to handle you first as a woman, right? They're not just as a woman, then a black woman, right? And I always go in, I try to make people comfortable, like make jokes, just enjoy being there, and at the same time do my stuff and really show results. Just so I represent myself as a woman, and I represent my race as a black person as well. And over, from one company to the next, I've always been, and I still am, even in where I am right now. The only black woman in that space. So has it been, lonely? Yes. I think in my current company, I was, the only black person for a while, and then when another black man joined in, we were like, "Oh, my brother!" I mean, it was very interesting, you know. But it's, I think the important thing for me has just been, hold your head up high and, represent who I am, who we are, and just show that, maybe I can change someone's perspective about, women, or I can change someone's perspective about, what it means to be black, and make them comfortable around me and really show results. I think that's really what drives me.
So I like the fact that you say you try to make people comfortable, right? Because I think sometimes there's a way we can be already so defensive and wondering, okay, what wrong moves are people going to make? What are they going to do to offend me? And then, I don't want them to take advantage of me and all that. How can we go about, I mean, how differently do you see people's response to be when you go in trying to make them feel comfortable versus when you go in already defend on the defensive? you know what kind of response do you feel you get that
Mm-hmm.
way versus, I mean, some other type of response you might get? My second question is, do you have any practical tips on how people can do that? Especially maybe somebody who is coming from a background where they know somebody who has been taken advantage of, someone who has been hurt, or what have you. What tips can you give to somebody who finds themselves as a minority, either gender minority or race minority, in a space, especially a space like a technical field where you're expected to be very smart, right? Can you speak to us about that?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I can speak from my own, my own experience and personality, maybe. I'm not the most confrontational, so maybe it's a way to just kind of start things calmly. But I'll respect you, expecting that you will give me the same level of respect. So I'll kind of start off from that perspective. Now, if I get a pushback or a challenge from you, I'll rise up to it too. I'm like, it's okay. We can stand toe
Not
to
like
toe.
you make yourself a pushover, right?
Exactly,
Mm.
exactly. Like I'm fine. We can stand toe to toe, right? But in terms of how I start off is just really being me. For example, I'll say in most environments, work environments I come in, people come in, they don't say hello, they'll just kind of sit in their spaces. And I'm like, we're human. We need to be able to relate to one another, right? So for me, I can come in and say good morning to everybody. I just come in, good morning, everybody,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
walk in and get into my office. If someone walks into my office, I'll say good morning, how are you? How are you doing today? I'll be personal. I remember one person walked into my office and started off with a question. I'm like, hey, how are you? How's it going? How are you doing today? And he's like, oh, I'm good. Thanks for asking. I mean, even if he came in with whatever it was, that diffuses anything, right? Right up front. So at any time now he comes into my office, he says, hey, Lola, how are you? Then I laugh and I'm like, I'm good. What's up? Right? So just being like just being personable, right? So that's one of the things I noticed, that in the corporate environment, it could get very so serious that we
Yeah,
forget that
we're human.
we can be relational, we can we're human, right? So I kind of go in with that. A lot of times if I run into my coworker at the in the kitchen or at lunch, I probably wouldn't talk about work. I'll say, hey, how's the weekend? What do you have planned for the weekend? And kind of diffuse things from that perspective. So that's, I think, that's from my own from my own point of view, and from the environment um, that I try to build around me, and from my own experience. Now I'm sure there'll be people that have gone through different, like, I'm not in that kind of cool calm environment. People are always out to get me or whatever, and that will take a totally different turn, right? But from my own point of view, it's kind of like, what kind of environment do I want to see, and how can I make that happen? How can I be the change? And for me, it's the fact that, let's be relational. Yes, work is work, and we'll get our stuff done. I mean, we're all smart. We're going to get our stuff done either way, right? But at the same time, we're here most of the hours of our lives, right? So let's be able to relate to one another. Now, in terms of there'll be things and people that will challenge me, maybe want to I remember one specific example where the guy would not call my name right, um, and for the first time we went, I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And you keep making jokes about my name. I was like, okay, all right, let's switch it up a little bit, because you're not going to keep going that, you know what I mean? Like, We're not going to keep
Mhm.
doing that. So I'm like, honey, no,
Dude.
it's not happening.
I do try a little harder.
Try a little harder. So I'll smile. I was like, you can get it and you can do it. Yeah, let's try again. And that way I can tell you that, yes, let's respect one another, right? As we're in this space, and environment for, you know, this 40 plus hours of the week, right? So I think that's from my own experience, my own personality. Like I said, I'm not the most, confrontational person. So I'm like, let's, build a nice, calm and respectable environment, and hopefully go from there.
Okay. Oh wow, those are very, very good tips. Very good tips. Everyone can say good morning. And how was your weekend, or what plans do you have for the weekend? Either one of those two questions can be
Mhm.
relevant anytime or any day of the week, right? Monday,
Right.
Tuesday, you can ask, how was the weekend? Wednesday, you
Yeah.
can decide what you want to ask, choose between the two. Thursday, Friday, you can ask about plans for the weekend. So we're not talking about being a busybody, asking
Right.
questions that are not appropriate, but I mean, those two questions,
Yeah.
they're appropriate in any setting, right? Because people can then share to the extent that they are comfortable. All
Yeah.
right. I mean,
Yeah.
except someone who is planning to go kill someone over the weekend.
Right. I mean, it's just basic human relationship, right?
Yeah.
I mean, give people compliments. I think there's a lady at my work. I kept telling her, if this gig doesn't work out, you can be a model. And she just laughs about it. But it's
Yes,
basic human
everyone needs a
relationship.
little kindness, and
That's right.
everyone appreciates a little kindness. Because
That's
there's
right.
just so much that's already stressing people out. There are voices in their heads telling them they are not good enough. There are
That's right.
people in their lives that already pull them down. No matter
Hmm.
who, you may see someone and you may not realize that they need a little bit of, they need uplifting words.
That's right.
And you can always be that person that gives sincere compliments,
Yeah.
compliments that just make people's lives a little lighter, a little brighter.
Yeah.
And wow, thank you for sharing that. My next question for you is a little bit more to tell us a little bit more about your current role. It says you are the director of quality. What does that mean? I don't see engineer in that phrase. What quality? What does that mean? And what does your day to day look like?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a great question because it's always, I answered this question in many different ways depending on who's asking me. Some people will be like, oh, so you just make sure whatever is going out is good. I say, yep, yep, that's it. That's it.
That's the long
So,
and short of it.
like, I
I,
mean,
I make sure it's good. 5 minutes, I'm done with work. I go.
you know what I mean?
I
And,
go about my
or
day
if it's someone
quickly.
like, oh, so you're like an engineer, I'm like, yeah, 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 you can say that too, So it always does depends on, who's asking. But I think as director of quality for my organization, I'm responsible for ensuring that the whole organization, our quality management system is set up so that we can consistently make safe and effective products that meet the patient needs and meets regulatory standards. So to break that down a little simpler is for every product that we are deploying or commercializing or that's being used, it's consistently safe and effective for the patient. At the same time, that product, our organization has to consistently meet regulatory standards for the market that we're in. So, for example, the US FDA, Food Drug Administration, they control or manage the regulations for marketing any product, any medical device within the US market. The EU um, they have a regulatory body that manages, all medical devices that need to be commercialized in that market. Same thing with Canada and all global markets. So for me, as director of quality, I have to ensure that as an organization, we meet every regulatory standard for every market that we're in for continuous production of safe and effective products to the patient and to whatever regulatory body is controlling that market. So it's kind of like broad across the organization. So I oversee and I'm responsible for that. So whenever the FDA decides and says, all right, Simon, coming to take a look at your products, right, that have been used in the market. I'm responsible for defending the safety and effectiveness of that product. So I have to make sure everybody else within the organization, because if I'm going to stand up there and defend it, then you bet believe you will have to make sure we're compliant as well. So that it's my responsibility to make sure that we're consistently meeting the regulations and meeting our patients' needs as well.
Wow. So, how many people report to you? How many people do you oversee? It sounds like a lot of people to oversee, a lot of, processes to oversee, and all that. You're looking at, you're overseeing things going on internally within the organization. You are keeping abreast of the requirements outside of the organization. And it sounds also like a lot of moving parts. How many people, how many people do you oversee? And then how do you keep a balance? How do you keep on top, not a balance, but on top of all the different moving parts that your role requires?
Okay. So I work cross-functionally most of the time. So my team will be responsible for, the procedures, the processes, the quality assurance of the products. But I work cross-functionally majority of the time because on the engineering side, you want to be sure that the development life cycle of any product meets our procedure and meets regulatory standards. I work with manufacturing where they're building the product and make sure whatever is going on, the processes that they're following meet our procedures, which meets regulatory standards. I work with a regulatory affairs person who says, well, these are all the regulations for our device, and we have to make sure it's implemented across the organization. In terms of so I work, most of the time I'm working cross-functionally and meeting with the different heads of the different teams. Now, in terms of in terms of how many people report up to me, my organization is smaller. So right now, I think on our team we have, and it's a growing team. We have a team of 6 people, but we're continuing to grow. I think that's one of my targets this quarter to add more hands to my team. But in terms of my day-to-day, it's more cross-functional than anything because it's the people that are working with those processes. I have to make sure and be in sync with them that they understand the processes. They have tools for them to make sure that we're compliant with those processes and also train them accordingly to make sure we're compliant to our regulatory standards. So that's, from the internal perspective. From the external perspective, it's, communicating with the regulatory bodies on what's new, what's changing, and also in terms of, submissions. So that's more of the external communication, talking with our, regulatory authorities in terms of, the potential of them, coming to audit us at any time, and also for new submissions, working with them to get our product certified as well.
Wow. So, how do you keep abreast of all these moving parts? Does it ever get overwhelming? Does it ever get like, yeah, like feel like too much? Do you ever feel like, okay, you are just trying to catch up? Or, you know, how do you keep abreast of everything?
Yeah,
Keep on top.
yeah. I mean, you're right. It's it gets overwhelming. I think the way I handle it is to go back to what's the goal, what's the focus for every quarter. We know we can't take on everything all at once. So I for every quarter we assign objectives, and key results, our OKRs, and it's for this quarter, what do we need to get done and what moves our organization forward. So when things start to seem so big, I go back, I step back, and I say, okay, what's the goal? What are we driving at? We will get to the other things and we'll prioritize other things. Now, there's some things that will just be showstoppers. You just drop everything and you need to just handle this right here, right now. Um, but otherwise, if it's not, then we go back to to what the goal is, what's the objective, and what are we trying to get to. You get that done, and then we set other priorities for the next season or the next quarter. And that's the same thing I do for my team. This is what, for you to say, I've been successful this quarter, these are things that you need to get done. So
Yeah.
have them. And then if anybody is shifting away from that, bringing them back to, well, we can't take care of that
Yeah.
right now. So this is what we're going to focus on. And then I also try to see, is it really my responsibility to handle this?
Mm.
Or is it, do I need to place this into somebody else's as
Yeah.
is somebody else's responsibility? That's another thing I have to assess in terms of, yeah, maybe there is not enough clarity around
Mm.
who has ownership of this task or this deliverable, and then maybe identifying that, right? Because sometimes that can happen as well, where it seems like, well, this should be your responsibility or your ownership, and we have to kind of lay that out as well. And there've been times where I have to do that and say it's more owned. This process is owned by engineering or operations or things like that.
Mm.
So I think that's how I try to keep things clear and defined, and um, help me stay on target.
Wow. So it sounds like the process of goal setting that we would need to do in our regular lives as well, right? You decide what exactly your goals are for the quarter, and you don't need to feel a need to finish everything because we really don't have time to finish everything. It's an illusion. We just keep
Yep.
running and we'll never get there. And then you decide what you need to delegate, what needs to come off your table and get on
Yep.
another person's table. Wow, that is so profound. That's very powerful. In terms of the people working with people, and I know we've talked a little bit about working with people, but more specifically for your role,
Hmm.
what are some of the skills that you've had to acquire, that you had to get better at, you've had to own, in order to be successful in the
Yeah.
things you do?
Yeah. I think for this, in my past roles, it's been more technical skills, right? For this role, it's more soft skills. Working with other leaders of the organization. I report directly to the CEO of the company. So working with someone who wants something done now.
Oh,
Um,
yesterday.
Yesterday, and something big, not just something little that we can just quickly get it done. So it's more, soft skills, communication, um, being able to say, let me think about that, right? And also being able to delegate, and collaboration has been, also a big one. In more of the technical roles, you can, say, let me figure it out, and then just dive right in and keep your head down and bring out results. But in my role now, I realize it's more of, collaboration, on, I may not be able to answer everything, but guess what? Once I work with, somebody else, or we meet real quick, we chart a way forward, we can, get more done, quicker. So that's, more of the softer skills and presentation skills. A lot of my time, putting together slides, and, so that hasn't been my strong suit. I mean, I can talk to it, but putting those slides together, man, I mean, some people enjoy it and it's like second nature to them. But man, I'm like, geez, can I just put bullet points, like. And so presentation skills, being able to put a good slide deck together, has been definitely one big one that, I'm still learning.
Working on.
Oh Lord. Um, so that's, and then in terms of, and that's, with, like, my colleagues, right? And working with, with my boss. But in terms of managing my skills, managing my team, being able to set, goals, for them, and deliverables, and able to, just, remove roadblocks, for them as well, to be able to do their work, well. And also just being, the source of encouragement, for them, and chart a good, professional plan, and inspire professional growth, for them. It's like, yes, you're here, but what do you look to accomplish, from being here for this time, and being able to see how I can, make that happen, for them as well.
Mm. Wow. So that last bit you talked about helps me to realize that you do quite a bit of people development as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's also, would you say it's also mentoring them?
Yeah, I
Helping
think
them.
mentoring them. I'm cautious for who wants it, right?
Okay. Yeah.
For, I have a particular person on my team who, when she was coming in, she's like, I really would like someone to mentor me, and I'm like, okay, sure, great. So I know that's something she,
Okay.
desires, and, I can. For others, not so much, but there's still that part of, I want you to know that you can grow in the organization,
Yeah. Mm.
and that usually inspires most of the, at least I've seen that, on people on my team, it's inspired them to know that there's a place where,
Mm.
they can grow to, because there's that opportunity. And then for the ones that are open to mentoring, absolutely, in terms of, letting them know what soft skills they should be, adding to their list of things.
Mm.
So yeah.
Oh, wow, wow. Thank you for sharing that. Now you're in
Mm.
a very technical field. I'm sure that there are times when you've been stumped by difficult questions or difficult problems where you have wondered, oh my gosh, how am I going to get past this? What
Mm-hmm.
do you do when you encounter problems that maybe you've never encountered before? Maybe you feel like, okay, I can't say it's impossible, but right now it does look impossible. When your boss throws something that, like, now you are reporting to the CEO and you are saying it gives you big problems that he wants to solve. How do you handle? Can you take us through that, maybe that cycle, that life cycle of solving a problem that at first looks impossible to solve?
Mm. So in the past, I would say, I'll just sit with it. I'll spend hours on it, and just, you know I need to figure this out. I need to figure this out, and research and, go to bed thinking about it, wake up thinking about it. Now I think I approach it a little bit differently. Um, I if I don't know, well, let me speak a little bit to also so that's like past. Let me speak a little bit to recent past and then now. Um, in recent past, it's been okay. I give it a first go at what I think while I'm still, working on a better solution. And then I give it a second pass and they just keep working on, before it was, it has to be perfect before I can,
Mhm.
deliver this. But in recent past, it was more, integral where I'll,
Yeah.
give it a first go around and then give it another shot and give it another shot and just kind of get feedback. Um, in more recent times, if I'm having I can voice out and say, that's a new space for me.
Mhm.
It may take a little bit of time to get an answer here.
Okay.
Is there anyone you think I can collaborate with to
Hmm.
resolve this? And then get some feedback. If the answer is still no, then at least the person knows that I'm going to have to take some time to
Yeah.
figure this out.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of times somebody else has maybe gone through it. So I just need to, kind of find out so I can also meet with, certain key people and say, have you gone through this? Or do you have any leads where I can start to get an idea of what we
Okay.
can do here? So that I think that's been, for me, my progression where
Mm.
now I really wouldn't hesitate to say, oh, that's a new space,
Yeah.
especially if it really is a new space,
Mhm.
and usually for both parties, we've
Yeah.
probably seen that this is a new space too,
Yeah.
and also see if they have any thoughts on, any collaboration efforts that we can do here, and from there, see how we can maybe start to gather, some information. That's my approach
Oh,
now. Yeah.
wow. So that's very profound. That's very powerful. It sounds like the evolution of somebody in the technical space from a place where you thought you had to figure it out by yourself and maybe even thought it was always a test on how intelligent you were. So it's like school, right? You are working, it's a test, you are working on this thing and the professor is waiting for you to as a deadline for you, so you don't have a liberty of pushing back in any way. And
Hmm.
even if you were open to working with people, some people don't want to work with you, so
Right.
and they don't have any incentive to work with you because it's your grade, right?
Yeah.
And evolving. And I think we take that into the workspace where we're under so much pressure because we feel we have to figure it out on our own. And then you are talking about this space where you are at now, this mind frame, mindset of collaboration, of, I mean, setting realistic expectations and saying that, okay, you know what, this is new, it's going to take me a while. Do you think that now, if you were speaking to somebody who maybe who is a fresh graduate in the technical space, do you think that's an advice you can give them? Or, they are thinking more of collaboration and setting realistic managing expectations and pushing back if they need to, finding their voice? Is that something that you think they can adapt or adopt? I'm sorry. Is that something you think they can adopt, or do you think that they have to, you know,
Yeah.
prove themselves?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I think maybe
Let's
it's
go.
it's it's a mix of both. So someone that reports to me, please don't come and tell me it's a new space for me. I'm sorry, man.
That's good.
No.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah.
I mean, so I
There's a
think
reason why I hired you.
that's right. So there's a level of now you can collaborate with like your teammates and and figure it out and provide me with a solution. You know what I mean? So I think it's kind of like a mix of both because it also stretches the new graduates to problem solve, and research and do some deep thinking. As opposed to, but a lot of times, you have maybe someone that has already done that, especially when it's very technical, that has already done that work before. And you can approach them and say, I'm getting stuck here, how have you done this in the past? And I did a level of that, but providing a solution really like hands, on different levels, right? Really is in the hands of the technical graduates. It's like you need to really dive in deep.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes,
I
because
don't
if you're
think
going
it.
to come to me to ask, okay, maybe a few steps ahead of you. I'm not the boss that gave you the work. If you're going to come to me to ask for tips, I want to make sure you have thought about it as well, so you are not wasting my time, right?
Mhm.
No. So, but
Yeah,
continue.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So it's I mean, and you can come with some level of result and say, I've kind of come up to this point. What do you think? And whatnot. So I think it's like a little of both.
Okay.
I wouldn't say just hand your boss, and say, oh, sorry, I don't.
You'll be fired very shortly if you
You know
keep
what I
coming
mean?
back.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So I think it's and that's why it'll stretch. That's why coming out of school, it will stretch you to really get into the meat of it. Really know how to find and solve problems. At the same time, definitely collaborate with your teammates. What have you done? I saw that you did this design before. How did you do that? What pieces did you use? What ICs have you used? What solutions are out there? Absolutely, absolutely. And then you put that together, and yeah. So I think it's still a mix of both on various levels. At the end of the day, even for me, that I say it's a new space for me. At the end of the day, the bring pulling results still lies in my hands. I still need to be able to show my boss that this is the result. You gave me a problem. I need to go and find the solution here, right? So that's I think on even on any level, new graduates, or it's still skills that we all have to keep learning and whatnot. I'm not as technical, as I used to be, so when you're a fresh graduate will probably be, a whole lot more technical. But at the same time, they also have to learn how to, collaborate with their teammates and, and it'll help them learn fast. You know what I mean? So that they're not just sitting by themselves trying to, figure it out when they have a teammate that has probably done, maybe something similar, that they can learn from. And that way you can, you present the results and say, this is how far I've gone, this is what I've done so far, these are the ways I've been able to be creative, with the results. What do you think? And, get some feedback, on that as well. So I think, no matter where one is, you have to show results, right? You have to collaborate, you have to be able to problem solve. Yeah, I think, yeah, so even for a new graduate, it's definitely something they can adopt at the end of the day.
Wow, that's thank you for sharing that. I think it's even we can even apply this to just everyday living as well,
Mm-hmm.
to solving problems as a mother, um, at home, as a
Yeah.
as a wife in the different areas of our lives. It's very interesting how skills that we need for the job can translate into other areas of our lives. And the
Mm-hmm.
skills that we pick up for other areas of our lives can also translate to, the things we do, and
Mm-hmm.
can apply them to the things we do on the
Mm-hmm.
job. So
Yeah.
you said that at the beginning when you gave your introduction, you talked about where you are at right now, but you also alluded to things for the future, right?
Mhm.
What does Lola see herself doing in the near future? Where does Lola see herself going from?
So that's a great question, and I think I keep evolving and I keep growing. I think one thing that I've always had in my mind is my dad used to say, "Seize opportunities by seize opportunities by the horns," and ride that bull. So I always keep looking out for opportunities of need and growth, and that I think that's really what has built me through my career journey. It's where I am right now. There was a need for me to kind of come in and pull things together. And once I've been able to get that to a certain space, I start to think about it and say, okay, what next? Where am I going? Where else can I make an impact? So I think that's really what drives me. Of course, I want to continue to grow, up the ladder, senior director, VP, and and whatnot, and just really make good change in our healthcare, and just protect the integrity of the medical devices that we're putting out there. And with the changing technology, is also very interesting to see where healthcare is going. Adoption of AI, and in the healthcare industry, as scary as it may sound, but it's also exciting for someone with a technical background as I am. So I think just really seeing what's coming, just kind of keeps me engaged, keeps me interested, and yeah, I think
Wow.
yeah, I'm just excited about opportunities for the future.
That's exciting, exciting, exciting.
Mm.
It's very refreshing to see someone who is excited about the technical space. Uh, Something that would give some people a headache, you
Right,
know.
right. I'm like, yeah, sure.
Wow, that's very good. Very good. So, as we round up today, would you speak to maybe someone who is getting discouraged, especially in STEM? Okay, maybe someone in college, maybe someone who is maybe at a beginner level in the career, or even at the mid level through their career, and they are
Mm.
discouraged because they either don't see the opportunities or they don't know how to make the most of the opportunities that are out there. Would you spend a few moments just encouraging such a person as we come to the end of our interview, of our session today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's if as long as they're interested in the space they're in, I say the sky is the limit. Don't feel like you have to be stuck somewhere. Don't if you've kind of worked up until a certain point, you've been doing it for a little while, and you see that you want to grow. Please reach out, to people that can help put your resume together. There's so many opportunities, so many opportunities out there that if we don't look, you won't see it. But the moment you start looking, it's
Okay.
like those opportunities just start to pop up, and you're like, what? Are you kidding me?
Mhm.
Like, so don't feel like you have to stay stuck. No matter, maybe you've worked, you are aiming for a manager's position, or you're aiming for the next position, and you've been trying and trying. Put your resume together. You've achieved so much where you are right now that you can put all that down on paper and seek opportunities elsewhere. Trust me, as you start, you'll see those opportunities build. Just never give up. There's just so much out there. For someone who's in there, who's kind of starting off, I say write a goal, set a vision before you, and say, where do I want to get to in 5 years, and just keep it ahead of you. I've always kind of said I kind of get myself a goal and said, oh, when I'm director, I think I'll just get out of the industry and, do something else, kind of pivot in a different direction. But then now I'm here and I'm like, oh, there's still so much ahead, right? But at least set a goal for a certain, spot. When you get there, you're close,
Yeah.
stretch it again. And
Yeah.
never be afraid to stretch yourself. It's scary, it's uncomfortable, but don't be afraid. It makes you a better person. It's so hard, to stretch. It's so hard. But man, once you get through that hump, you look back and you're a totally different person. You're more confident, you're happier with yourself, you've learned so much, and then you stretch for the next thing. So that's just, don't be afraid, and don't settle, right? So don't feel like you have to, stay there, right? Oh, I've been here 10 years and they still haven't given me the promotion.
Mm.
Please clean up your resume and look for something else out there. Yeah.
Don't feel like because that particular company has deemed you maybe quote unquote worthy for the next level, that defines your value.
Absolutely. They don't define you. You're meeting a goal for them. Now you meet a goal for yourself.
Yeah.
So it's, you've done it for a while. They still don't want to move you up. Clean up your resume, put it out there. You will see traction. If you can get a professional to look at your resume and kind of talk through it with them, the things that you've done, you will be able to move. You just have to kind of step out of that comfort zone. A lot of times when we've done something for such a long time, we're now comfortable.
Yeah.
It works. It works with the family system. It works with, so we're going to have to step a little bit outside of the box and just even see what comes your way. You know what I mean? So I think that would be my advice for people that are just starting is, set a goal before you. Where do I want to get to? What do I want to do? What do I desire to do? What do I like? Right. And then for someone that's been doing it for a while and just doesn't see what next is, just take a chance on yourself, just and don't feel like you have to stay, Maybe we can edit that part out.
I think it's profound, but if you want me to, I will edit it out.
I think, but the point I'm making is that just take a chance on yourself, and you just try to clean up the resume and see what comes your way, and you'll be surprised, by the opportunities that are out there. And just take it, stretch yourself a little bit. You'll be amazed and you'll love it.
Oh, wow. Thank you so very much, Lola, for being with us on Career Journeys today. It's been such an exciting conversation, very interesting, all the different things you've shared. And I'm sure that what you've shared would enlighten the members of the audience, anyone who watches us on the show, watches the show. Thank you very much. And now we've come to the end of this episode of Career Journey Stories That Inspire. And your story has really inspired us. I hope that I get the opportunity to interview you again on a platform such as this. You've been a very delightful guest to have. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure doing this and, just having a good time. It's like just a nice conversation, and I hope, somebody gets inspired, by the story.
I know that you certainly will live well. Thank you. Bye-bye.